from a listener in the Flipping 50 Insiders group. It would be great if Deborah could share some information about common exercise injuries. So here it is. I'm diving in right after my invitation. I've been sharing little sound bites, 60 seconds or shorter, of short exercise tips on Instagram. My account is at Flipping50TV, as it is everywhere, Flipping50TV. So I invite you to Instagram to see all of those, especially if you enjoy just the most concise, biggest tips, the most important ones in a short amount of time. Boom, it will either pique your curiosity. If you want to go deeper, you can read the post. Generally, below those videos will go just a little bit deeper, but it may give you everything you need to either know, oh, I didn't know that, or two, to make you say, I need to ask some more questions about this in order to do it correctly, because then I promise you, it will be well worth the rabbit hole that you might go down in order to avoid an injury or realize I'm on my way to one if I keep doing it this way. So if there's a particular exercise you're looking for, chances are I've already given a tip on it. The most basic ones and the ones that I see the most errors on are the ones I've tackled first. So I started with squats. I've done lunges, and there's more on lunges. By the way, I'll say a little bit more about that if they are your nemesis. But I've looked at chest press and bent over rows, bent arm pullovers, some head to toe cues that you should be hearing just in any stance or position. So I won't go into further detail, but you'll find that again at Instagram.com. You can now bring that up on your device almost anywhere. So you don't have to be on your phone. You can bring it up, see it a little bit bigger on your screen. But I think you will find those valuable. So for now, stay here, stay tuned. And if you do decide lunges, oh my gosh, I can't do them, or you think they always cause you pain, here's the deal. Sometimes, frequently, in 38 years, what I realize is women have been doing them for decades, but never been given great technique cues. So maybe you've been doing them recently in a room alone, watching a video with an instructor, talking you through them, but not giving you the cues that sometimes intuitively it takes this sixth sense to know. I know right now that their weight is going to be changing and they're potentially going to feel weaker. I've got that. And the only way you get it is from making the mistakes yourself, watching a room full after room full of all age customers and clients make those mistakes and come up and ask questions. So that shows really the difference between, an instructor who's got 20 years of experience teaching 2 or 3 times a week versus somebody who's been doing it in gyms and studios and full-time every day, all day for life. So you'll find if lunges are your number one nemesis when it comes to exercise, they're valuable, you want them, they're in probably every workout you're going to get or do, but you struggle with them. That was true for all the people on Instagram. So I created an entire short series of videos that'll help you decide if lunges, then which ones are the best for you and how do you do them so they don't hurt, they in fact feel good, get you results, and which exercises, if lunges are just a no right now for you, what can you do to work the same muscles but do it pain-free without the pressure? So I will leave the link. It's flipping50.com/lunges. No secret there. But stay with me. Listen to this one first, and then I think you'll go with a better idea to either of those resources to help you. So number 1, avoid too much too soon. Your body requires about 6 to 8 weeks or that's at least, right, to adapt to stress. Now, your muscles and your mind, who want results yesterday, will feel ready for more. Your joints, however, and your ligaments are not. And they won't necessarily be complaining. You'll be saying, I'm not sore, so it's okay, right? Well, no. We don't know that. It's like, building a house, you got to pour the foundation first, and you have to have those things set first, right? So without that strong foundation in your body, in the connective tissue, you may accelerate quickly only to find that you are set back with an injury later that was caused way back there in the foundation. And you're potentially going to look for, scratching your head and look, why did I get injured now? I was so strong. I was the most fit I've ever been before I got hurt. I hate those words. Hate to hear those words. There are really many of them unnecessary. So listen to this. If you're prone to injury, if you are right now, you're very deconditioned and you need to start, just own it. It's cool. Or if you have an autoimmune disease specifically. So these might especially pertain to you, but start with one set. In the research throughout the history of the 38 years that I've been doing this, cracking the books, from a university classroom myself to certifications myself to then leading certifications to then teaching in a university, this has not changed. We still recommend one set to start. And many of us have jumped ahead and done more. And if you're wise and it's appropriate for you, you may get away with that. But realize I said get away with. It may not be best for you still to do multiple sets. But you'd start with one set with a higher repetition range. Now realize if you're not started yet, you don't know what that means, higher repetition range. So what we call high or higher is relative, first of all. So if three other fitness professionals hopped on here, some of them are used to lifting heavy and really small sets, meaning they're only doing 10 or fewer repetitions whenever they lift. They're going to say high rep range might be 15. I'm going to suggest to you that according to the research, higher repetition range might be something between 20 and 25. In You Still Got It, Girl, the book I wrote back in, I think published in 2015, the repetition range, according to science, kind of upper level, where you can still get some results. You can improve your gait, for instance, and improve your performance, would be around 28 tops. Now, I would never have somebody do 28 reps over and over and over and continue to do that and not increase your weight, decrease your repetitions. But for a starting position, I like between about 20 and 25. So we also don't want wear and tear on your joints. And the higher repetition range you do, the more that's likely if you're also doing multiple sets. Then you stay there. You stay there for about 2 weeks. Even at the beginning, you may progress a little bit sooner, but again, you progress sooner because of your muscle and that ability. But your joints and your ligaments need a little patience. They're not going to complain to you, not until they do. Right? With an injury. They don't sneak up on you and say, I'm a little sore, so back off. They don't feel soreness. So take it easy. Don't let them get the chance to tell you that they're injured. So then about 2 weeks later, you're doing fine. You increase to 2 sets, still in that same repetition range. So you don't really change anything, but you're doing 2 sets of it. Next, about 2 weeks later, you might guess that's a pattern here, by the way. So that's 2 different workouts each week. And then so it's about 4 workouts later, 2 weeks later, you increase again and you do those 2 sets, but you do it with a lower repetition range, maybe 15 to 20, which means you're going to have to pick up a heavier weight in order to reach temporary fatigue where it's hard. You barely can do that last one. Then 2 weeks later, you got it. You're going to do 3 sets with the same repetition range, not changing anything. Now you're at, okay, this is where maintenance happens. For most of us, 3 sets is reasonable. You start to get to 4 sets, and occasionally you could put in 4 sets. I will do that. It's kind of a shocker to your system. But to do that regularly, many of us don't have that time if we're expanding the number of exercises we're doing. So we stimulate all those major muscle groups. Doing 4 sets of every exercise, that now starts to be a volume and time that becomes, I can't do it. So we may throw in the towel. So I don't want you to do that. So 3 is a great number. Just realize, sometimes, you could do 4, but you wouldn't always want to do 4. So even I, who've done 8 Ironmans, I don't do that kind of volume every time. First of all, I don't have time for it. Second of all, it's not the optimal for your advantage for growing lean muscles and keeping high energy. So think about, your personal, okay? So not but even your personal tendency to do more. Like think, I'm going to get ahead. I'm going to trick the system and do more because I can. It's not necessarily better. Doesn't necessarily make you better, fitter. Sometimes can just make you more tired, more torn down. So then you're always going to want to play. You can gradually increase your weight now until you have a desired number of repetitions or the ability to do 3 sets, sometimes with heavier weights and few repetitions, 10 or less. Or you do that moderate 15-ish, that's plus or minus a few. And maybe sometimes you also do those higher rep ranges. So many ways to play, an infinite number of ways to play within your workout. First set might be 20 to 25 reps. Second set might be only 15. Third set might be 10 or fewer. Now, that's crossing over different systems. So that's more of a, let's just do this to kind of warm up and ease into that last most effective set that works. But other times you might have weeks where you're going to go heavier. You're really going to focus on that and muscle strength and hypertrophy. And then you're going to back off and focus more on maybe performance based with a lighter weight, higher repetition range. And that you also might think of, we do it for athletes called periodization. And you're, say, a golfer. Well, during golf season, you're spending a lot of time on the course. That's number one, time and energy, but also going really high with your weight, low with repetitions, and doing lots of strength and power may get in the way of you, swinging optimally. We want you to use that power now on the course that we've earned through doing the power and strength maybe earlier before you were outdoors playing golf. And so we'd keep you doing an injury prevention strength training program, but we'd keep it lighter weight and higher repetitions so we don't interfere with your performance on the course. So hopefully that makes sense to you. But it's sometimes much easier to call these plays like, what am I doing today? If you are busy, definitely to follow a program designed for you personally, or follow a program designed with that periodization in mind. But just do your due diligence. Is it a made for you program based on research on women just like you? Not just taking into account, here's a bodybuilder's workout. Is it a bodybuilder's workout for women in postmenopause? Or is it a bodybuilder's workout for a young athletic male or for a woman even in her early 40s who isn't yet, experiencing a great deal of fluctuation and she hasn't experienced that major roller coaster. So it's, one woman's great program is not another woman's great program. And you do want to be able to pivot based on what's happening. The differences among men and women's fuel use, your muscle use in the same exercises and the way that we and they recover from exercise is not the same. So in midlife, during extreme hormone fluctuation, and after hormone reduction, the optimal training schedule that is yours is not the same as a mouse or a man or a young woman. So if you begin a program already tired or chronic dieting is a part of your history, you may need to look at the role of exercise differently. There are times when exercise should be the catalyst to help you, say, have a better appetite, more stable blood sugar, or improve your sleep. That the exercise shouldn't be the thing you're thinking will be the magic bullet for fat loss and more muscle and getting in better shape. Sometimes you've got to come back to being able to sleep, eating better, not having cravings, and eating well with stable blood sugar and energy through the day. And the exercise's role is to improve those things. ultimately, when they are improved, then the exercise, now you can escalate or accelerate your progress in the other areas that you want. But you will potentially go faster to that goal if you think first about what do I need as a top priority in order to see and feel results. So I know often when women in midlife ask me questions about exercise, they've skipped this part that they want to zoom right over, and they want me in isolation to give an answer to what's the best exercise for me. Well, first of all, tell me how you're sleeping. Tell me how your stress is. Tell me where you're in your body. Where are you depositing fat? And, how's your brain fog? How's your digestion, your elimination? How's your libido? All those things inform me about what's happening with your hormones. I don't need lab results to tell me that. You can tell me just verbiage. I mean, how you feel never, ever lies. So all those things are important, and you can do this for yourself. There are a lot of women who choose not to, right? And that's why we use coaches and why we use personal trainers. And hopefully that personal trainer who's working with you knows more about not just exercise and exercise technique, but knows about hormones. So let's do this. What you'd want to do to help you with your results would be to look at, number one, your basic hormone status, your nutrition status. Micronutrient deficiencies are so common, not just among midlife women, but among everybody. Vitamin D, magnesium, omega-3, those are three top ones that magnesium is crucial to your metabolism, as well as about 400 to 500 other actions in your body. But you also, omega-3 is fish oils, can help you reduce inflammation that may be something in the way that you don't even see to your goals in your progress. Vitamin D is in part responsible for metabolism, but it's related to muscle very closely. Your fast twitch muscle that helps again with metabolism, reaction skills. We need it as we age. And these things are very commonly deficient. So definitely by midlife, lots of our dietary habits and dieting period have caught up with us. We've had lots of that, not really eating breakfast, not really having a lunch, and kind of coasting maybe till dinner, thinking, well, I'm going to fast and then I feel better when I don't eat food because then I don't get bloated. But you really haven't fixed the problem. I mean, some of that it's hinting at we need to fix your gut. We don't just need to avoid putting food in and avoid the problem that way. So I would suggest micronutrient testing might be something you want to take a look at, and then going over that with a qualified health, fitness, functional health coach or your functional doctor. You can supplement yourself if you know what's an optimal level and where are you and what's the gap. And then if you're already on medications, you may want to ask because you want to know what might be the interaction with those. You want to look at your sleep quality and quantity. So if you're not sleeping really well and you're ramping up your exercise, we're kind of like writing checks on a bank account that's really pretty low, and we don't want to overdraft, right? You also want to look at cravings and crashes for the same reason. If you're having tons of cravings, that really is your body's way of signaling you probably are not getting adequate micronutrient dense foods in your diet. And it takes the macronutrients to get those micronutrients if you're not eating high quality foods, real foods, not fake foods, right? I mean, somebody's planted the seed that being a vegan is really a good idea. And then that eating fake manufactured vegan, quote unquote, foods is good. How is that better than eating animal protein, right? That's bred, in a very safe environment and grass fed. So you have to really look at what's the effect of the food you're eating on your hormones. Are you confusing your hormones? Because that can be going on too. But cravings and crashes, cravings, whether for salt or for sugar, often are a signal of micronutrient insufficiency. Who knew, right? So when you ramp up your vegetable intake, for instance, a lot of people will notice I don't have cravings anymore, right? And it's not by accident, but also crashes in the afternoon. So if you're having energy crashes, that suggests something's going on with your blood sugar. So where do you start? You might start, if you're there, using exercise differently, not doing that, promise of fat loss and quick results program, but start with light strength training, maybe lighter weights and higher reps, just 1 or 2 sets to start, or even beginning with foundational activities like walking, if you're not doing that on a regular basis, or yoga instead, may serve you best through this time to enhance your sleep, to reduce the cravings, stabilizing your blood sugar. Then beyond that, you've looked at your micronutrient density, your sleep quality and quantity, your cravings and crashes are dissipating, not experiencing that anymore. Then when you're performing an exercise, it's important that you know good technique. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit. Now, clearly, this is an audio and we're not doing video, so I'm not demonstrating, but I can talk you through good technique. I'm that good. I'm waiting for your reaction. Okay. So what I mean by that is a qualified fitness instructor could talk you through while I'm sitting in a chair in another room in another state or potentially another country, wherever you're listening, and talk you through how to perform a good squat. And I know, because I can see you doing it in my head after hundreds of thousands of examples prior to you, I can tell that if you're feeling the weight bearing in your foot in one spot, what you're doing. So let's take one example of an exercise, a squat, that's really pretty basic. A squat is not a squat. The weight should be solidly on your heels of the feet when you're doing a squat. When you start and you're standing, first of all, I want you to notice, what's your habit? If we just have you stand up, maybe push pause and just let yourself stand normally, and then come back to me and say, I tend to keep my weight in the balls of my foot a little bit more. Or, no, my weight's pretty solid on my heels and I can feel the balls of my foot and my toes, but it's pretty even. Okay. And that's really what we want when you're standing. Evenly distributed, heels, balls of the toes. Definitely not forward on the balls of your feet only. As you come down, bending down as if you're going to do a squat. And if you suddenly go crazy in your mind, like, how do I squat? Think about just sitting in a chair. Or I think an even better example, and maybe you cannot relate to this, but hopefully I'm not offending anybody. Think about sitting in a church pew, because church pews are just usually a little bit lower than your chair, maybe in your house. So if you sit down as if you're going to sit in the church pew without holding on to the one in front of you, can you do that? What would that feel like? And think about just putting your bum, tapping it on the bench and then coming back to a standing position. So now think about what happened for you. When you come down, your weight should stay solidly on the heels of your feet. The position that you should be hinging at your hips primarily. So you're just sitting back, taking your bum backward. The knees move slightly forward. They biomechanically, they have to, because they're hinging more, but we don't want them to jet forward suddenly. So now you feel the weight in the balls of your feet. And a lot of women do. A lot of men do as well if they're doing them incorrectly. There's so many versions of squats, though, and that's something I want to point out to you. In a recent study, I just shared this. The study was published in 21 in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning, which is an organization that I belong to. National Strength and Conditioning Association puts that one out for decades as a strength and conditioning coach. A recent study, and I shared this in Instagram, demonstrated that a squat progression should go like this. So ideally box squats, which is honestly what I just showed you or told you, sitting to that chair, sitting to a box, or sitting to a church pew. That's a first, right? So just getting that target and where you're going, how are you coming back up? Then wall sits are another one. Then counterbalance squats. And this is in a demo that I did in Instagram very recently to give you an idea. And goblet squats and landmine squats were the last two. Now, goblet squats, something that's probably familiar to you if you're exercising or doing squats at home. Goblet squat is holding that weight at chest height as you go down and up in a squat, either with a wide stance or a more narrow one. It doesn't matter. You choose what works for you. But landmine squat is done and it requires a bar, a long bench bar, and or one that you would find on a squat rack, often at a gym. But if you think of a bench press setup where there's a bench and there's a rack and there's a bar that you might or might not put weight plates on, talking about that heavy bar, they weigh themselves different levels and weights. But you would have that, and then you'd anchor one end against a wall or in a corner using a dumbbell. And that's really all it takes. You'll find stations at gyms where you can actually take the weight and you can put it into a tube so it's held still. But we're creating the same thing, and it's very usable. What you do is position yourself so the free end of the bar is at your chest. And then you face the rest of the bar and you go down and up in a squat. So you're lifting weight. You can also put plates on the end of it nearest you, right? So you are doing more than just the squat, but just picturing the form itself. What I want to point out is each of these squats, specifically these last two, goblet squats or landmine squats, are going to focus on different muscles. It's proven that among men and women who were tested doing these, that there was more quad use, top of the thigh, meaning the quadriceps muscle, used in goblet squats than landmine squats also used more hamstring work or activated more hamstrings. That's the back of the thigh. Women in particular tend to have weaker hamstrings to begin with. We are therefore, for that reason, quad dominant. But when we do too many exercises that feature the quadriceps without an equal and opposite hamstring stimulation, we're making our likelihood of knee injuries greater. So it's really important that if you are doing a program or you're following a trainer that you're saying, why'd you choose that type of squat for me? And we're doing squats, I noticed, and you also have me doing leg extensions, focusing on the quads. How come we're not doing any hamstring exercises? What are we doing for my hamstrings? You should be asking that. So it might be that you do deadlifts, single leg deadlifts, or my preference for safety and effectiveness for doing hamstring curls. My preference, even if I'm at a gym, often is not to get on the machine and lie down and do them. I definitely don't ever use a seated hamstring curl. Hate it for my clients. But I mean, the effectiveness is just so poor. And it doesn't really mimic activities of daily life. I would rather put you on the floor and have you do a hamstring curl with a ball. And much more functional. And then you can also do some things using bands. But here's where we get into the weeds, because now we're not giving you as much stimulation, as much resistance to stimulate those muscles. So you want to make sure that you're asking these questions. So it's not only that you're doing those exercises, but you're doing hamstring curls, bridges to balls, or single leg deadlifts to stimulate the opposite muscle to keep your strength. So injuries occur because of poorly planned fitness exercises, poorly planned sequences, poorly planned progression, or poorly planned within a workout, or at the very least within a week's workout. But my preference for safety is within a workout. If you're doing quad dominant exercises, that you do hamstring dominant exercises, and like pushing exercises to pulling. I'm always going to say one push. For every one push, you do two pulls, because posturally, we need that. Daily activities of living have us rounded over as we age anyway. Similarly with your ladies, your quads and your hamstrings. For every quad exercise you do a set of squats, you make sure you do a set of hamstrings. And if you know you have that imbalance in your hamstrings, and probably because you don't like doing hamstring work. I know, there it is. I said it. It's so true. We love doing the things we're good at. We hate doing the things we're bad at. But here's the other thing. You can't get good at something you don't practice. So just start. It'll get better. You'll get stronger and you'll be like, yes. And you'll have a little more lift in your bum if your hamstrings are toned. Am I motivating you now? Okay. And that's actually important, not just for aesthetics and feeling good about how your jeans fit, but it's good for strength in that rear kinetic chain. We need it, literally. So you want to make sure when I scroll through social media posts and I observe some of the influencers, fitness influencers performing exercises, it is very clear to me that even they don't know what good technique is. They're demonstrating it with, elbows away from their sides when they should be close in and down. They're demonstrating it with a rounded back when in fact the back should be lengthened and almost with a slight arch to create a neutral spine. And they're demonstrating with, a poor position for their lunges. And they're not, beyond that, then calling it out. They're not giving those technique tips. Just counting, is not enough. Come on. All right. So when it comes to exercise and being smart with a slow with a weekly plan that honors your hormones, it's really important. I do a 10-day hot not bothered challenge infrequently at different times during the year. So you may be lucky enough that it's coming up so that you can learn the connection between your hormones and your exercise and how you can optimize those. So you do have more energy because it is about technique for sure. And I give you that first and foremost because it's really important to me that you understand where should my foot be placed? Where should my knee ride over my foot? And all the little details there. Where should my shoulders be relative to my ears? Where should my arms be relative to my body? Those things will prevent or cause an injury depending on which way you go. But also there is what's the tie to my hormones? Because doing the exercises in the correct technique more frequently, meaning too often, will throw your hormones under the bus. And you cannot get fit with hormones that are wonky and just all over and out of control. So I will put the link to the 10-day hot not bothered challenge down below. And that might be a great way for you to just stick your toe in the water. You'll do 10 days with me if you get in once we tell you, hey, it's open, registration is open. You actually get a little bit more than that. You can get up to about 3 weeks of tutoring so that you feel good before you even start that 10 days. Just some mobility things that you can add to whatever you're already doing, or just start if you're not already doing something. But I promise no matter what your level is, you'll be able to handle this. We both do the exercise. You see the layout of a good plan by going through 10 days with me. This is how I would live. This is the exercise schedule. So when you're through, there should be no question about what's the ideal exercise schedule because you've just seen it. From any day 1 to day 7 or day 2 to day 8, you've seen a good week of an exercise layout for right now. So drop your questions below the show notes today. I love to hear from you. And if you've got a question and you're not already a part of the Flipping 50 Insiders group in Facebook. It's a free group. We ask that you tell us a little about you before you get in. So there is a little bit of a gate, and then we will give you access. So the gatekeeper is one of our community coaches. Karen, she's fabulous. She will be in there answering questions on a regular basis. She pulls me in. We scoop and scrape it for questions like this one that lead to a podcast that we know a lot of people will benefit from. So there's a lot to dive into when it comes to common exercise injuries during midlife because they are so very common. So to unpack specific ones may be a good topic for future. Many of those tend to be ending in itis. So those chronic types of injuries, plantar fasciitis, hip bursitis, tendinitis, whether we're talking shoulders or elbows, those kinds of things tend to be the most common injuries among midlife women. And there is a common denominator, not one that we can point you to research saying yes, but the prevalence of certain injuries as I talk with other personal trainers, physical therapists, and medical exercise specialists who have lots of life experience, have seen it, we can say, no question that midlife injuries occur with a greater frequency than, say, injuries among 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, or even among, 70 and 80-year-olds. It's midlife when hormone fluctuation is greatest. So you're not alone, but now you're armed with, how do I start? How do I make this make sense? And it's not just the exercise. You got to look seriously, girlfriend, at your diet. And if you're short sheeting yourself there or with your sleep, you've got to address the contribution that makes to making you vulnerable. All right, there you have it. The show notes for today will be at flipping50.com/common exercise injuries. And I can't wait to hear from you. What are you waiting for? Let's start Flipping 50 today.